Welcome to Foodie Friday. I've got two things going today. First, I am experimenting with dry pot and pot cooking oats to denature the lectins. And then the second thing is I am going to use these oats once they get done with pressurizing to make muffins. Now, this muffin recipe is what replaced 6-week muffins for us when I went gluten-free. These are gluten-free oats that I buy in bulk. Use your best judgment. If you don't do well with oats, don't use oats. But honestly, my family tends to dislike things made with rice flour. They think it tastes like flour. I have that problem sometimes, but not always. But we all seem to agree that oat flour stuff is okay. Now, I had been just grinding the oats up and using them that way, but I did still have a tendency not so much to have problems with the oats themselves. I would have a little bit of tendency to itchiness in the day or so after the fact. So I'm not sure if that was a mast cell reaction or just the lectins in the oats were problematic enough that they raised my histamine bucket a little bit and other things were causing problems. I'm not really sure. So this is another thing. So much of this histamine stuff, you do have to experiment and try it yourself. You might not need to do this at all, but for me, I know that the last time I made a crisp and I pressurized it for 6 minutes, I didn't have any problems whatsoever. And the time before, it had been really mild, and I didn't even realize I had had any issues until I was reading back on some notes I had made in the couple days after that, which is a little bit unusual for me, which made me take notice. So anyway, the oats are out. I did pressurize on high for 7 minutes. Why not 6? I don't know. I like the number 7. Now, I am just putting these in the food processor. Nothing special. I only have 2 settings on this, and I kind of went back and forth between the 2 because I don't know the difference. I don't need this full amount. Feel free to only do what you need the amount for. There are conversion tables that will tell you how many rolled oats are needed to make such and such an amount of flour. I didn't take the time to look them up because I need to have this uploaded soon, honestly. So I will have the recipe for this in the description box down below, as well as the link to the recipe that I adapted. It does call for both oat flour and whole oats. And be aware, I have simplified her recipe beyond just changing what I did for the oats. So, it is what it is. And it did originally call for bananas, which of course are tending towards higher histamine. So I am going to use applesauce in place of them. And it's really a pretty basic muffin recipe. You can adapt it. You can add things to it. I changed the honey out for maple syrup. I've been craving maple syrup. Maybe that gets into that pancake thing. My daughter has been craving pancakes. I don't know. We've used honey in the past. It tasted great. Obviously, these were replacing 6-week muffins. So originally we used to use raisins as an add-in, and those tend to be high histamine and cause problems because they aren't completely dry. But say you don't have problems with nuts, feel free to throw them in. I know sometimes people have been known to throw chocolate chips in. Again, that's one of those things. Use your best judgment. I do tend to have issues with the sugar in things, so I'm trying to do this a little bit lower sugar, and I'm just leaving out all of the, I don't know, possible problem areas so I can get an accurate judge of whether or not this fixed the problem with the lectins in the oats. If you have issues with cinnamon, I know I've gotten a couple comments that cinnamon is high histamine. I only found that on 1 out of about 6 different high histamine lists. I guess histamine lists because they tend to list both high and low. You know, I don't really know what to say. If you have problems with cinnamon, leave it out or replace it with something you don't have problems with. I know for years I thought I was sensitive to cinnamon. As it turned out, I was actually sensitive to cassia, which is sort of a cousin to cinnamon. They're in the same family. And in the US, cinnamon, as it is sold, is often actually mislabeled cassia. And cassia does have some toxicity for humans, but is generally okay for a lot of people and is actually used as a spice in other places of the world. So I avoid, how do I say that? So I have been avoiding cassia and have been okay with cinnamon. Cinnamon itself is a fairly strong anti-inflammatory, and it also helps lower blood sugar. So if you can't do cinnamon, as with most things on this channel, leave it out. I adapt these recipes in a way that will work for me. And yes, you did see me only put 2 of the paper cups. My daughter doesn't like the silicone cups. I'm going to have to make more in the paper cups anyway. You'll see why in a minute. But anyway, if you have issues with something that I put in the recipe, feel free to make a substitution that works better for you. If you don't know what you could substitute for that would be a low histamine option, feel free to ask. Now, don't cook these in a toaster oven when you don't normally do that.